Hi, welcome to my hometown project. I will be talking about my hometown of Chesapeake, Virginia. So, I could have talked about Chesapeake's history. It is pretty interesting. There are fun things about the environment and stuff, but that's things that you can find online. It's pretty readily available, and you wouldn't have to have lived here to know about it. You can just find that stuff. And I wanted to talk about the things that you only really know about as a resident of the city, um, because on paper we look like we have absolutely no issues, but there's a lot of bad stuff that goes on that our city likes to cover up, and I will particularly be talking about racism in this presentation. So, like I said, my city likes to cover things up, sweep issues under the rug. So, this is Hometown State of Mind. There's a particular mindset shared by most residents in my town. I call it the Chesapeake mentality. This belief that if everyone lives in the dark, no one will see the monsters within it. There's no need to face the shadows each of us cast in the light or acknowledge the menacing silhouettes loitering in lonely rooms to keep our thoughts company. It's an entire city without a sense of object permanence. What we can't see can't hurt us, so pour bleach in your eyes for blindness is safety. So here are some of the events that have been doused in bleach. Literal whiteout. There are acts of racism that have been covered up, or just weren't acknowledged. I only knew about one of these events, but I focused on things that happened in relation to our public school system because one of the biggest things that caused me to come to Georgetown was the personality shift and personal growth I had as I transitioned from an almost all-white middle school, Hickory Middle School, to Deep Creek High School, which is a mixed-race high school that has been given a really bad reputation. So this is referring to an event in 2013. I'm sorry if you can hear the planes outside. They do supersonic jet flights over my house. Basically, there was a hate letter that was sent to one of the three black students on the girls' basketball team because they believed that there was a racial bias, which is why those three girls were given starter positions, and the first line was Black History Month is over. When the issue was brought to the principal, who, note, is a black woman, she said there are no race issues at Hickory High School. This is the one event that I did know about. Basically, two Hickory High School students dressed up as members of the KKK for Halloween. The school refused to comment on what happened to these students, but they said that the appropriate measures were taken, whatever that means. Since I knew that this had happened, I specifically sought this out, but I couldn't find it anywhere. I had to go into an incognito tab to find it. I guess my Chesapeake IP address caused me to not be able to find anything on the issue, but I literally could not find a single thing until I put on incognito. So this is another event. This happened at Grassfield. Basically, a Grassfield student called a student at Hilton the N-word, which caused that student to shove the Grassfield player and led to the suspension of the student, Austin Black. And then when it was brought up by Hilton's administrators that the Grassfield player had instigated being shoved, the VHSL gave them a warning and said, like, warnings are a big deal, okay? That's not just being dismissive, like, it matters that they got a warning. But Austin was still suspended from the semifinals. So this is the event that I consider the most terrifying. It happened last year while my little brother was attending the school, but when I brought it up to him, he had no idea that this had happened. I had no idea that this had happened. I asked my older brother, who recently graduated from Grassfield. He didn't know that this had happened. Basically, Sean Watts' son was in guitar class when another student in the class started yelling racial slurs and saying that he was a member of the KKK and hit Sean Watts' son with a noose when he told him to calm down, to which Mr. Watt's son subdued the student, tackled him to the ground, but then when he got up, the student wrapped a noose around his neck. I don't know how the teacher didn't see any of this happen, but he just let it go on. And then the student was charged with assault and battery, and once again, the school refused to comment on what happened to the student. So this is just a quick comparison. Like I had mentioned, both of my brothers went to Grassfield, both my sisters went to Hickory, and then I went to Deep Creek. You can see the safety rankings are very different. I'm not saying that my school is safe, it definitely isn't. In the first 2 weeks of my junior year, we had 57 fights due to gang violence. So we're definitely not a safe school, but personally, I don't think a school where a student got attacked with a noose deserves to be given an A in safety compared to a school where 2 kids punch each other sometimes. Also want to bring your attention to the free and reduced lunch in diversity, because I think the difference is stifling between 12, 9, and 42. Our school also has the least funding out of the 3 of these. So just to make the issue more apparent, here is a racial comparison between the 3 schools. It's a quick side-by-side. They try to rezone the schools sometimes because Deep Creek has significantly less students. Hickory is not built to have as many students as it does. Grassfield is not built to have as many students as it does. And there are other schools, other mixed-race schools in the area that have an insufficient amount of students, which also causes a decrease in funding because the fewer students you have, the less money you're given. But there's a lot of pushback from white suburban parents who want their kids to go to Hickory and Grassfield, specifically military families who move into the Hickory and Grassfield area because they've been relocated here, and when they were reviewing the public school options, those were clearly the best schools, and they didn't want to risk getting their kids sent to Deep Creek. So this is another one of the pieces that I wrote. It's called Guilt by Proximity. I'll read this one as well. Color is not a prerequisite for contempt, nor a requirement to be looked down upon by the cold snow. Simple closeness is enough to brand one as unworthy in the eyes of privilege. Saturated stains form in the wake of each pigmented presence. Call it dying. Pale paper is marked by black ink, and the words read eternally less than. Blackness seeps into the lightest of shades, darkening its hue, decreasing its value, distinguishing it from the pure. For when whiteness is the fragile standard of superiority, even off-white is the threat. So, to give an explanation for why that was written, this event happened my sophomore year of high school. We had gone to Hickory for a football game, and obviously I had been there before. The middle school and the high school are attached to each other, so I spent 3 years of middle school running that track, playing on the same bleachers. My best friend, who's shown in the pictures on the right next to me, also attended Hickory with me, but we were perceived as threats when we came this time. But the only difference was that we were on the opposite side of the bleachers. We were wearing purple uniforms, and so we were considered dangerous. So here are my sources. Thank you.